Tyson, so good to see you.
Hey, how you doing?
The book is amazing. Well, let's just dive right in because there is so much there to share. And I still wanted to talk to you because as I read your story in Sand Talk, I just thought of the people I've known in my life. I knew one Homo Indian elder here in Northern California, some Native Hawaiians in Hawaii, and I've been so moved by stories of Indigenous people trying to navigate all the complexity, both of their own backgrounds and the modern world. And so, as I read Sand Talk, I just thought your book Sand Talk, I just thought, wow, this story needs to be told.
I think people are like the only reason I'm selling any books or people are sort of checking out my work. It's kind of just because people are sick of having knowledge from special people. People are sick of listening to elevated, wise, people who know things. And I think people, in their interaction with the rest of the world, with the cities and institutions and everything else, they've come to really mistrust people who are claiming that they know the answers. I mean, there's
Yeah.
only so many cults you can join before you're like, God damn it, I'm not going to fall for that again. And I think people are just like, okay, who's like, who's the thinker who's like just like so shitty that they couldn't possibly be a guru? All right, I'll talk to this guy because he's never gonna try and talk me out of my socks. So we'll see how we go.
Yeah, well, so much of our inquiry and our communication is up here in the head. And I know I'm in my head a lot of the time. I'm in my head all the time in my professional world. And then I said, if I try and bring that head approach to my marriage with my wife or to my friends, it's like they don't want it. They want you to be authentic and be yourself and be in your heart and be present with them.
That's it.
And yeah.
That's it. Like I don't know. I think people are longing to just interface with another being for a minute. I just feel like all discourse has become a struggle, either a struggle session or a little culture war or something. Like every bit of discourse in every relationship, it's a fight at the moment, and it's people trying to curate themselves into something that they're not. That will give them more cachet, will give them more capital, will give them more competitive edge. We're all skating around these fitness surfaces, these evolutionary fitness surfaces, in this abstract layer of economy that's just made of nothing, a tissue paper of lies, and we're trying to survive on it, by becoming that, and it's just falling apart, and I think people are sick of it. And they're ready for something else. They just don't know what the hell that something else is yet, or how to be able to trust the sort of emergence of what happens when they make proper networks of relationships and just live within those. That it comes from that. That they don't have to find an expert who knows a new way to tweak the governance system, to tweak the structures of this system to make it feel more fair. Not the way change is going to come.
And the word you used, emergence, trusting an emergence, and nature is emergent. Nature just inherently has everything that it does and needs in this emergent way. And we human beings are so used to manipulating things, again, top down, that it's like rewiring ourselves to try and
Yeah,
be with that emergent property of what's just organically there.
yeah. I mean, they talk about resilience and adaptation, and they've ruined those words now, so we can't use them anymore. They've ruined those and turned them into well, you're responsible for your own safety and healing now after we poison you and and dispossess you and whatever else that's going to happen here after we poison all your water. Then you just need to become more resilient. So it's up to you to sort out all the cancer and everything with your resilience and adaptivity. We just need to keep polluting. So they've kind of ruined those terms. But with what those things were, before they got co-opted by liberalism, which everything resistant always gets co-opted by liberalism and turned around and put to work for the system. It gets sanitized and turned into something else. But if you can remember what adaptation meant, a decade ago, and what resilience meant a decade ago, then you can think, yeah, so that system has that resilience of, when it gets a knock, it actually, the system enjoys it, like a healthy system enjoys getting a knock because it's sort of breaking the pattern for a minute and it allows everything to recombinate in there. And in new and interesting ways, it's like your immune system. It loves to get a bit of a knock, your immune system, it loves it because, and it just makes it more vibrant and, keeps it recombinating, keeps it complexifying, and if it doesn't get that knock, then it stagnates. So a system likes that. I like it when, my mate Jim beats me up with sticks down the road when we're doing our training to, get me off my chubby butt once a week to remind me where my edges are. My body likes coming home with some bruises around it. And it's sort of, I don't know, it's more than just this idea of resilience. But resilience and adaptation together, they sort of begin to, a combination of those two words begins to approach what I'm talking about. You do need that little knock. And so I guess out of crises, out of disasters, there are things to be glimpsed that sort of push you towards, what a life is like that is constantly vibrant and in a state of abundance and movement and change and interest and love and life and, fat in all the right places.
And challenging at that sometimes too. Yeah, I was so struck. I did about 10 years worth of research on PTSD, mostly with veterans, with quite a few Australian veterans, mostly US veterans as well. And one of the intriguing things was that people have traumatic stress. They're in these desperate circumstances. And the data show that 2/3 of them actually emerge stronger and have post-traumatic growth. A third of them collapse and go into PTSD, but 2/3 of them use the fire of that trauma to actually transcend and move and grow and move to a whole new place.
Yeah. And I guess I'd like to know what the percentage is with that third that crash and burn. The percentage of those who aren't crashing and burning until after they've re-entered the economy and the state, the controls of the economy and the state. Because I usually find that's when the shocks settle, when the trauma settles in and people trying to make meaning of it back in that frame and cannot make that meaning.
Right. Yeah.
And also somehow out there in the midst of the trauma, for a moment, there's some small part, and that doesn't dare mention its name, where that person in the trauma, in the moment of impact, discovered their agency.
Yes.
And usually discovered connection with other people, but then human and non-human entities, even animals, plants, whatever, but less often plants. But yes, places. People who go through these things, they regard the sites of their trauma as sacred places, and they always go back to them. We spend a fortune on this continent over here to return to Gallipoli on a regular basis. We're going and hang around Turkey. Like, what for? What does any Australian need to be doing that for? But they're all going. The descendants of the Anzacs, Australia and New Zealand, they're always heading over to Gallipoli and spending time in that sacred place. And that's generations later, where a traumatic event occurred. That's sacred ground. We understand. It's become sacred ground because as domesticated humans actually form a link with a place. And it's so profound that it feels sacred. That was the site where they regained, a glimpse of what it is to be human. And then they come home and they try and make sense of that in their life, where there's jobs and where there's a welfare state and where there are, roads, corners not just on the walls of the cells that they have to inhabit in their house, but on every behavior and every, that not like generative protocols that sort of limit excessive behaviors and direct you to more amazing behaviors. Not those things, but rules. And I think they just fall apart in there. I think it's certainly post-trauma, post-traumatic stress, but it's quite a bit post. Happens quite a bit after. I think it's when you fail to integrate the meaning of this meaningless life that we're all asleep walking through. When you fail to integrate the meaning of that with the meaning that you found there. And I think that the only way you can make sense of that and stay in the domesticated sphere is to take on the victim, the entire victim branding. There's a whole suite of suite of traits that you can select from a menu for the victiming that works quite well, that helps you stay in balance with the domesticated, industrialized human sort of sphere. So I'd recommend getting yourself some of that victimhood. It's very good. I do it all the time. I do it every other day. Like I'm here talking like I'm some kind of bloody rugged individualist or libertarian hero bullshit. I'm terrible. I'm the biggest victim there ever was. I try not to, and so that comes across in my writing, but just in my daily life, I'm like, boo-hoo-hoo, woe is me every 5 minutes. My toes are still broken. It's been 6 months. Why haven't they healed yet? It's like, wah, get on with it, boy.
Well, in your book, you talk about complexity and needless complexity, and then the complexity of nature, and just accepting it all. And I thought that was really powerful, the way you have this complete inclusion of every bit of your experience. And so not trying to impose this, what you describe as top-down order on something as complex as the natural world. That includes all of your feelings, all of your responses, all of your social connections, the whole package.
Like, I guess your experience within the system is part of it. It's not even the lens through which you're seeing it. The system is observing itself and you're in it. And it is tricky, isn't it? Because then from what are you speaking? So we have like a colonial system, like an imperial system that's standing outside, trying to stand outside of that natural world or pretend to have that objectivity and removal. And then they want to do interventions into the natural system and the community and all that sort of thing. I don't know, we're supposed to respond properly. I just had something incredibly profound to say and I just lost it. Isn't that awful? It was amazing too. God, it would have been good. It would have been really good. It was the best thing I've ever said. And now it's gone. It's freaking just gone forever. Oh.
That's a piece of the messy complexity.
Yeah. God, it was good. Anyway, that's baby brain for you. I tell you, it is good to be a dad, a hands-on dad, but it's not good for your cognition. Anyway, yeah, maybe if I could backtrack a little. Oh my goodness, it was very good. Anyway, it's gone. No, it's gone.
Well, we were talking about integration after trauma and the need to revisit the place, the importance of connection, the social bonding. I know that in those veterans that actually did recover, they had strong community bonds. They were there for each other. It wasn't just their mates. It was people in their communities. It was their kids. It was their wives. It was their friends, and they were the ones who were resilient. They found a resilience in the heart and in connection with other people.
I mean, it's like, but they tell us lies after these disasters. Like, so what do you know about Hurricane Katrina? It's like everything on the news there. But I've been looking into that, and I don't know, there were all retractions later from the newspapers, etc., but they're all on like page 27 down the bottom. That, all the rapes and murders and chaos and looting didn't happen. So it's 90-something% of all the violence done there was by the police and military that were sent in to try and prevent lawlessness.
Mm.
So often, they were a bit jumpy, and they shot quite a few people who were like, carrying stretchers or, taking water to an old person or something like that. But the community really did pull together, and that, the hellscape that was reported in the media, just, it wasn't there. And you talk to, and all I can find is interviews with people who say it was the best time of their whole life. It was that, it was horrifying. They'd lost everything, but they were incredibly happy together. It's like they gained the world in what they'd found in each other, in this patterning. They found their true inheritance, this patterning of an economy and a governance structure, which is, in us, in the same way that migratory roots are in birds. When they're born, they know what to do, and we know what to do with trade and governance. It's like part of our pattern.
Part of connection.
It's in our biology, and we are the land. Our biology is of the land and patterned on that, so it's patterned in that landscape, and you find it there too. So the law is in the land, the law is in your bones. It's there, and just that moment that the genie is released from the bottle there, and everybody enjoys that moment of rediscovery of like, oh my God, this is what I am. This is the organism that I am. All these people here, this is I'm in this species here, this custodial species, these people, this is our work. This is what we do, and it's beautiful. They feel that for a minute and they gain the world. And then, I guess the most traumatic thing is to suddenly lose all that again. Someone goes, no, insurance, etc.
Yeah. For so many people, actually, they don't appreciate the challenge that the natural world brings. I know they actually want to minimize it. And I know I go to conferences sometimes where I speak, and it's like they want the natural world totally tamed and manageable. And there's no sense of getting out there into places. I went to one at a hotel called Miraval in the middle of the desert, and they were in the middle of the desert, and there were lush green grasses, and there are ponds. And it's like, hey guys, this is the desert. So I just left after a while, and I would just go in the morning. It was really hot in the afternoon, but in the morning I just go for maybe 2 hours, like just really early in the morning, and just wander around out of the resort, being in the, feeling the place. But other people who go to Mirabel, it's like, oh yeah, I went to the desert.
I love your laugh.
5-star hotel.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we got desert. We got desert with resorts in it. Yeah, same. Yeah, and I mean, they do enjoy the palate, don't they, of the desert.
Yeah, it's amazing. I know personally, I go on usually a 1 week retreat a month. I'm able to organize my calendar and do much work, then go away for a week and just go to someplace really, really like be on the cliffs over the ocean and sleep there and be there and really ground myself. I know that.
Well, you're giving back something of yourself into the place.
Yeah.
Like not necessarily in terms of matter, although your waste, that you produce there in that time, that does help that place. But so yes, physically that, but also the sustenance that you're gaining in spirit from that place, you're looping that back. That's a closed loop when you come into relation in that way. And it's too many people have that extractive relation where they go to fill themselves up at the place with the big trees, and you see that even with Vincent van Gogh with all his paintings. I keep coming back to that. I really went back through his story. I was kind of obsessed with it for a while. But, he was talking about nature as kind of like this extraction point, as this, something to be pillaged for color. It's like the light and the color that he could take from a place when he found a moment, within a season, within an orchard, you know what I mean? And it was about, what can I take from this? What light can I extract? What color can I possess? It's sort of like vampiring off the kind of beauty of what he would think of as the beauty of nature, but that's just like, everything in creation trying to have sex in one moment, because it's just like You know, when I'm walking around, I don't know if it's just because of my adolescent mind, but when I'm walking around in the world, all I see is everything trying to have sex. And so it's like, you know, it's what if things are beautiful, they're sexual. If they're ugly, then they're usually asexual. So,
And
but
it's,
you know, in a forest, everything is competing for a mate. Everything is trying to attract something, and it's that big jumble, that big mesh of attraction that makes the beautiful. And but you're supposed to walk around in that beautiful and be. You're supposed to be a sexual part of that. Like that's what your sexuality is, and that's who you are, and you're walking in it, and you're giving that in and closed loop. You know, you're in that system and understanding that you're part of that system, not standing outside of it, taking a photograph or painting a picture. And I think when people break that loop, they have that open loop, and then they're trying to extract through it, like sucking petrol out of a petrol tank, gas out of a gas tank through a bit of hose. You know, I think that's what they get, and I think it makes them want to kill themselves and cut their ear off.
wow.
Mm.
What an analogy. And then, you've traveled widely, and especially in Australia, and then your movement from your sort of, the whole story you tell at the beginning, which is really interesting. You say, I can't imagine why people want to know my story, and then you tell it, and it's really remarkable. And then what I wonder though is, as you would move around, and as you move around today, as you go to a new place, how do you connect with place? What's your practice to connect with place?
Well, I think it's different depending on what your experience is with being in place. You know, there's like you almost have templates. You know, where you understand. You know, almost like a kind of country. You know, is it red soil or black soil, or you know, sand? Is it, you know what I mean? And there are a lot of different rubrics for those things. You know, so you know, it's about. I guess you come with some already sort of templates that you look at the place, and you're able to compare. Oh, this is like this other place, and then I know what the niches are. You know, like, okay, so in that Mulga niche here, there's this one instead. And all right, so if that's the case, then are the ants and the butterflies doing the same thing that they would normally do? You know, okay, so that would be that season there, but this is a couple of thousand k's south. So now what the hell? How is that going to work? Would that be all right? Well, I got to come back here in March and see what those ants and butterflies are doing, because I'll bet that'll be when this one's dropping its pollen. And if it's dropping its pollen, then you know those butterflies might be doing their dance down there with the ants together, and that will be interesting to see. If you know what I mean, I don't know. There's that same. You have some templates, but there's so many complex like symbioses like that going on, and ceremonies like I just described to you, a ceremony. You know, land-based entities, beings do together in different seasons, and when there's a certain level of understanding that you get of these systems, these land-based systems, where you go there, and template's the wrong word to describe it, but it's the closest I can come, where you have broad understandings of how different kinds of landscapes work, and then and you bring that, and you start to see the patterns come of what's same and what's different. But I guess that's how you do it, even at the smallest level. Just walking right now out of your house and down the street, it's starting to notice same and different, high, low, hot, cold, wet, dry, and following those liminal spaces. Stop somewhere where you feel to stop, and then imagine 5,000 liters of water being dropped in that place, and then look and see where you think the water would flow. Start following the tracks of that imaginary water in the landscape of where it would go, because those places are the liminal. They're the liminal sort of trails and where their energies are, and you follow that, and then you start to look for other signs. If there's trees there, you look for how the trees are growing in relation to the track that you're following, because if that's a true track, then that will affect the growth of the trees and where the branches are pointing and growing and stretching and all the rest. And then you'll understand where the underground water is. And then when you understand where that is, then you'll understand where the birds are going to go, in that season, and which birds are going there. And then once you understand that, then you understand, you see what I mean? You get a knock-on effect, this sort of relational network of causes and effects, but more than that, of connections that are layered, because those connections are different from moment to moment in cycles, in seasonal cycles. You know what I mean? So there are stacks upon stacks and wheels within wheels, and you are navigating this intense weave, like a 4-dimensional weave that you're navigating once you start to get in there, until suddenly you realize that time and place are the same thing. And when you're there, when you've got like this understanding of time, place, then you just move in the world like that, and it's enough. So like I keep saying, a 14-year-old Aboriginal boy's understanding of time, place, it's enough. It's that's enough for me to do absolutely everything that I need to do in this world. And I could get 5 doctorates on that 14-year-old boy's understanding of time, place, and I can do more innovations than is healthy for one person to have in their lifetime. So in this current economic system, so I'm happy to sit with that level of knowledge, and that's attainable by absolutely everybody.
To our ancestors, it was a matter of life and death. If you were bad at that, you died.
Yeah.
If you were good at recognizing the patterns, then you lived. And it's so interesting to look at the patterns in the nature, in nature around you. And I watch people. I have a beautiful park right next to me, and I take walks there. I go for bike rides there often once a day. But I watch other people, they're jogging, they have their heads, their earphones in, they're talking on the phone. They're totally focused on getting their exercise routine done. They aren't noticing what's happening. And if you just stop and breathe and start to approach it the way the picture you're painting there, of really observing, noticing, being one with, and then also the pleasure of doing it over and over and over again in the same place, and then building up those layers of knowledge about place, you start to like put roots into understanding a place that just a superficial glance or a quick walk can never do.
Yeah. And in the end, that's the thing that, a lot of people talking about, signal and noise right now in the world, and so people with their headphones in there, they're getting this noise. It's kind of like everybody's grabbing a little bit of the noise that's their brand or whatever, and they think that's the signal and that's theirs, and they just try and congregate with other people who have that similar frequency of noise, but everyone's missing the signal, and I don't know, the people who are talking about signal and noise have an idea of data, producing, that there are signals that come through the data, and that's great, that's good. But there's informatics in the natural world too, and particularly in the land. There is narrative in the landscape. There is signal in those places that I mentioned before, where you can find some of them with where the water will go. There is signal coming from landscape like that. There's signal coming from every entity of the land and from all the people around you. But then also the sort of collectives within that, the big collective sort of minds and resonances, that are happening, in those, like groups and unlike groups across them and everything else. There's signal there. There's signal, as I said, your body is country earlier, it's in your bones. There's signal there. There's story there. There's pattern, and that is good signal. And, we'd call that right story. So we'd say, proper story, but wrong story is the stuff that individuals or groups just make up for their own gain, within an illusory system, like an economy or something like that. That's wrong story from our cultural point of view. That's what wrong story is. And there's almost everybody's doing wrong story now. You're curating your story for the world, and you're starting to believe that illusion yourself about what you are. And I guess that's why people find it refreshing just to have somebody talk without filters for a bit and just see what, oh my God, this guy is going to be destroyed. I can't look away. It's like, maybe you will, but you just try without the filters for a minute. Try not to curate it and just let your true signal come through. Be a signal for a minute and just enjoy that. It's not safe at all. And you'll probably be cancelled in 5 minutes, but it's so... Everybody who's ever been cancelled is more successful than they were before they were cancelled. It's like COVID. Everyone's blaming COVID. It's like, oh, I was doing really well, I was working really hard. I like had all these jobs lined up, I was applying for jobs all the time. And then COVID came, man. COVID came and I just haven't got, I was getting my shit together. I was losing weight. I was working out. I looked really good. I was really fit. I was really fit and handsome, and then COVID, and now I'm just this fat thing here. I know that's my victim-y excuse about COVID. Anyway, it is fun just to I don't know, you've got to laugh at your nip slips, when you have them. You can't just be mortified and try and pretend it didn't happen. You got to have a bit of a laugh. And that's a good place to start. Don't take it all too seriously.
One of the things I notice when I'm doing a retreat, going away for a few days, is there is a period of calibration. It doesn't for me happen right away. I don't know about you, but it takes me about 2 days to drop in. I can't go from the civilized world into being engaged with nature. I can do it a little bit in a walk or in a short excursion from the office or the house, but when I go away on a retreat, it just something. It's like fifth gear from fifth, fourth to third, and suddenly you're down to first. And you slow down. There's an organic body shifting for me that happens. I don't know if that is true for you too, but it takes a while for me.
Yeah, well, it is. It's I don't know. I mean, our lives have been stolen from us. All of us, in the last century, everybody on the planet's been removed from the landscape. A century ago, most of the people in the world were still living in a very close relationship with the land, intimate, embedded relationship with the landscape. Most of the people in the world. And it was only a century ago that kind of started uprooting most people. And, even in the last 50 years, really, really ramping that up. So it's only in the last century that everyone's been dispossessed, from the landscape. And that's most of the people on the planet. You've either lost your connection, or you're in the process of losing your connection, or you're going to be killed. Because if you're somebody, I don't know, who is refusing, who's refusing to lose that connection, then your existence probably won't be tolerated for much longer. So I don't know, we have that, and we're all in this, you have to sell your labor. Everybody has to do that. And it's possible, though, to accumulate enough capital, which is basically just a way of storing, labor hours. You can accumulate enough capital to be able to do what you want with your own time for a certain set amount of time. You can spend those credits. Sounds like a sci-fi novel, doesn't it? But it's not. It's just regular capitalism. And you can just save it up, and then you get to do what you need to do. And for a time, you get to enjoy what it is to be human. Most really wealthy people who have so much of that credit stored up that they couldn't use it up in 100,000 lifetimes. Those people just they actually enjoy the abundance that that our species is used to most of the time. For most of the last couple of million years, it's been pretty lovely, actually. Yeah, and I don't know. So I guess in those moments where you're allowing yourself, how long do you take for a retreat? A fortnight, a month?
I usually take a week off a month.
Right, 1 week off a month. So you spend the other 3 accruing some surplus labor, so that you're able to purchase back your time, so that you can spend a week as a human being, rather than as a tool. So off we go, and it's just awful. But so yeah, you accumulate that. you buy back your time, you spend a week as a human being. And I guess from the moment you log off, then you're already enjoying it. From the moment you log off, you're already feeling better. But then actually doing a retreat and actually, being able to concentrate on your stuff.
We're talking about reconnection. And I want to know if you could just share with people what that process of reconnection might look like on an individual level. I mean, on the planetary level, obviously we have a long way to go. We're basically on a planet now that's telling us that we're highly disconnected and is giving us many signals all over the world every season that's so. And so how do we even begin the process of repair as individuals?
I just think you don't have to worry about that. Your network takes care of that. If you're focused inwards and you're focusing on self-actualizing, then you are cutting yourself off from the source. You're opening that closed loop. Every bit of work that you put into yourself is destroying you. That would be my point of view. But I mean, please don't assume that's true and then just go and follow it like an idiot. Like, have a think about it. Work it into your meditation. Work it into your mindfulness thing. But I just think self-actualization is not just a waste of time, but it's actually quite deliberately there to prevent us from doing the things that we need to do, which involve us actually connecting and being in these networks of praxis and thought and feeling together. That actually they take care of all your actualization. They take care of that. Being in those networks. And that doesn't mean you're not an individual. You are a fabulous, awesome individual. But it's because of the unique pattern of your network. No two people have exactly the same network. Yours is wonderful, and the way that every unit within that, even when 1,000 people know the same bloody ones, your relationship, your pattern of relations in there is absolutely unique, and that's where your mind is, that's where your story is, that's where your memory is, that's where all your skills and knowledge are. There's not very much going on inside of you at all. There's a lot going on just for the basic operating system, to go. But, it's a mistake to be looking inwards and thinking that's where everything is and that's what you need to work on. Yeah, work outwards. I would say try that and actually see how much better you feel on the inside, the less you're digging around in there.
So outwards being community, being the earth.
Yeah, connecting with place, connecting with human and non-human entities, connecting and just try not to be like, I think most of the people I've seen hugging trees are really just hugging themselves, or they're trying to get a hug from the tree. It's that trick of being the amazing, fabulous individual, but knowing that your amazing fabulous individuosity is actually a product of a bigger system, of a big beautiful system of relations that's giving you life. And it doesn't exist to do that. It's a symbiosis, and in a symbiosis there's, and what's more important, the ant or the butterfly? Who's the most fabulous one? Who gives a fuck? Neither of them. Both. They're an ant to fly.
Yeah, I know that's the word that the Lakota Sioux use in their sweat lodges is Matakwiyas and all my relations. When they say all my relations, they mean all my relations. When you enter the sweat lodge, when you leave the sweat lodge, when you are between the cycles of the sweat lodge, that acknowledgement of all my relations. Actually, as I say this, at times I'm getting goosebumps, chills all over my body, just thinking about some of the sweat lodges and the medicine that I've been privileged to sweat with, and then they all my relations doesn't mean my relatives. It means everything. It means the insects. It means my ancestors. It's every layer of life, and they're involving all of this in every single phase of that ceremony. It's so powerful.
Yeah, that's it. It is. It's everything, but it's not. It's not this oneness. It's not this cosmic oneness as well. This sort of disembodied oneness that people seek through plant medicines, plant teachers and stuff like that, and that you see in this this sort of new age space often, that kind of metaphysics that's emerged from, quite a bit of the weird occult stuff of the late 1800s, early 1900s, the stuff that gave rise to a lot of the very weird mythologies, basically became fascism, that became Hindu fascism, German fascism, Italian fascism, Asian fascism. There was, all these weird occult mythologies that sort of, led into that. And it kind of, I don't know, just kind of metastasized through everything. And you wouldn't believe how much of that weirdness is in the New Age movement, and just in all of the accoutrement that you find, but especially just in that practice of individuation and extractive relation with the universe. It all moves towards a kind of weird transhumanism, which pretty much everyone agrees, capitalist and communist and fascist and everyone else except for a handful of anarchists around the world. Everybody's into the transhumanism, from the Russian cosmists to the the crypto fascists. They're all all in the same lifeboat with a hole in it.
When you think about the spiritual traditions of the ancients, they were very much focused on, in Christianity or in Sufism, they were focused on transcendence and leaving the world. You sort of moved into this space of oneness with the cosmos, and often you literally left the world by going to a monastery, hiking up into the Himalayas, going into the desert. You just went away. You didn't try and integrate it. And the idea was that you can't. The life is nasty, brutish, and short here.
Yeah.
Regular world, and you have to escape into the mountain top to have any kind of transcendent experience. And you want to stay there once you've had that good experience. You don't want to come back down here and deal with diapers and money and
it's that ecstatic loop. Yep. It's making that ecstatic loop and staying in it. Yeah. I remember seeing it was in the 80s when I was a kid, and it was some movie, and I think it must have been, and this is like, I'm talking pre-Lawnmower Man, before VR was a thing. And so it was some kind of science fiction show that was imagining a virtual reality, like as a training machine that gave you full, you could hook your brain up to another person's brain or to a recording of someone doing something, and you would have the full bodily experience, sensation experience. You could just lie there and have the full sensory experience of another person. I saw the movie about that, and this fellow had just taken. Okay, so one of the interns decided to have sex with the machine on, and sort of that tape was just kind of going around the office, going around the lab, and everybody was, experiencing that. Anyway, somebody had found a way to loop a particular part of that tape. They just got a very, I don't know, a peak moment, I guess you'd call it, in that, and they'd put it on a loop. And that was sort of found the next day, and they'd almost killed themselves.
Orgasm.
Yeah.
Orgasm machine.
Yeah, that's it. So, I feel like that's spiritually what we're kind of doing to ourselves in a lot of ways, with a lot of these sort of movements and sort of, little snippets of self-help stuff that sort of, Buddhism was a movement, and it was a movement against hierarchies and privilege. It was a way for people to reclaim. It was pretty much, the same as Christianity when it started out. Most good things start out the same way, as that a human pattern trying to reassert itself after a series of disasters. And that's what Buddhism is. When I look at it, it's got all this stuff, the right path, right thought, right word, all these things, beyond just like, here's this meditation technique, but it's basically a bloody anti-fascist handbook, a way of setting up a way of living that ensures that nobody is ever bossing anybody again, and therefore everybody's able to live in this kind of abundance. That's what Buddhism is. It's activism. But then I see, liberalism co-opting that and all these corporations sending the PDF document on how to do mindfulness. One page. Mindfulness. Here's this one practice ripped from this tradition, minus all the dirty stuff and minus all the spirit stuff. And it's just like, can you feel your finger? Can you feel it? Can you feel the skin on your finger? Excellent. Now, can you feel the inside of your finger? Trippy, isn't it? Yes. Feel the inside of your finger. Now feel the inside of your hand. Could you do the other hand as well? Could you do both hands? Excellent. Now both hands and both arms. Now can you feel the inside of both of your arms and both of your legs? Now I want you to take that feeling and just be with it for a moment. See if you can move. Walk around in the world like that for a minute. Isn't it nice? Now get back to work. And that's it. And I don't think that's what the bodhisattvas had in mind.
Oh, too funny. Wow. Yeah. Yes, we try and tame these ancient practices and insights and fit them into our structured boxes. And yet, so many things are breaking out now. Like, obviously, the whole natural world is breaking down and giving us huge messages that we can't continue as before. I mean, this is a self-terminating civilization unless we change. We're being like, it's change or go extinct. We're facing pretty stark choices of species here. So,
well, it's the experiment of nationhood. A lot of people are like, arguing over which model of nationhood it is. It's communism that's destroying the world. It's, all this collectivism and sharing and states. And no, it's capitalism. It's all this greed. It's not. They're both growth-based systems. And, you can't have a massive nation where everybody is supposed to be the same under one law. You can't have that. You can't control millions and millions of people from one central government. You can't do that, without a growth-based economic system. You can't do it without a caste system. You can't do it without inequality. So it's the system of nations itself. It's an experiment that's been run only for 100 years. They didn't even exist before that. You didn't have that. You had city-states and bloody empires and kingdoms and stuff like that, which were tiny. They were tiny things. Like, just relax. Get back to regional identities. It's like, really, we need to get back to that patchwork quilt of regions and local governments. It's worked since forever. And it's worked forever for people. It's whenever anyone tries to grow beyond that, it stops working. You can't have it. And every culture around the world, our culture, we've got cautionary tales about that. There's always this animal or this being that got too big and had to be destroyed. Read your Jack and the Beanstalk. You don't need to learn about Manala, the monster cod, from our stories down here, or Tiddalik, or any of those Aboriginal dreaming stories. Just open any of your own, like, fairy tales and have a look there. It's right there. And the related tales. I can see a story map there coming out. You got Jack and the Beanstalk, and that's related. There's a harp in there, and then there's also the goose that laid the golden egg is another intersecting story. I'm seeing a web of stories here. Now there must be a place. There must be places for those stories. Who's going to find those places? Who's going to find the mountain range that's the body of the golden goose? You need to find that, because that's your map, the maps of story. It's not a story, and it's only a tale until it has place. And when it has place, then you'll find the lore in that story. And then your people will stop killing the golden goose. Everybody's children grows up with the goose that laid the golden egg story. But, we all have to serve a system that keeps killing the golden goose. So, can we come back under the law of the land, please? Find it. I can see it in there. It's, there's a landscape of meaning in there.
I'm just breathing in your words, Tyson. I'm just breathing in those words, that landscape of meaning that is there already, just waiting to be discovered by a modern human being. Yeah, and then for those just to end up with, these are huge ideas, and then I want to end with just recommending a practice to people. Make it the simplest practice. What would you tell somebody who just wanted to start make this real in their life? What would
Right.
what can they do?
Easy. Okay. So read all the words on the screen behind you, and all those words and their meanings in your head, and then think, okay, I've got to find a way to think of all those things combined as one thing without any abstract nouns. How would I think of all those things without an abstract noun? Like, for example, how could it be a verb? And then when you translate that into a verb, go and do that thing. That'll probably work. I don't know. I'm not saying that's the answer. I'm proposing an experiment, which I guess might be the only answer that I could offer would be, keep in your inquiry going. Stay curious. Don't accept anybody's propaganda or answers. If they got an answer, then they're full of shit, probably.
Go and be that thing. Just to feel the energy of those words. Like, I look at them sometimes, and I tune into, why did we human beings come up with a word like gentleness or graciousness or kindness or compassion?
Mm.
And,
well, they're all abstract nouns, and in my language there's no abstract nouns at all. And I look at them and I think, oh my goodness, how has that changed the way I see the world and what I focus on? It does shift your reality. It shifts all of your lens, like to know these things. But then to unknow them, it does something else.
To unknow them, to know what's there, to know yourself, I know certainly for me, being in those retreats and just standing with my feet in the ground, you unknow everything, and just being is so profoundly powerful.
Well, I better get going soon. I've got a very limited amount of time for interviews now before the kids lose it.
I just can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this. I just love your mission. I love the way you're trying to spotlight on this, and I'm just so grateful you're doing what you're doing. So much gratitude for sharing this time together.
Oh, thanks for having a good laugh with me. I really liked your laugh too. And
I had to restrain myself, Tyson. I wanted to scoot with laughter.
Yeah. Oh, but here I am talking frowning upon people who are, pursuing ecstatic loops. And all I do for the whole interview is ignore your questions and try and find ways to make you laugh because I was enjoying that ecstatic loop. So, if you want a model of what not to do, see previous interview. Yeah.
Well, you get... Your book gives me about 5 laughs per page on average. So
sweet, nice.
Everybody,
Free of them unintended.
Go back to your family.
Hey.